Hi everyone, this is Elena, and today for you I have a card using the new Distress Oxides from Ranger along with the Hero Arts color layering bird and branch. So I'm gonna do a inked background, like blended background, and those Distress Oxides are not as transparent as the regular Distress inks, but they're very opaque and they blend very nicely. So I'm using 3 of the new colors. Well, there are 12 colors and they're all new actually. So I'm using worn lipstick, wilted violet, and broken china. So I'm using the mini inking ink blending tool. And first I'm starting with the worn lipstick. I'm just blending on that like the only third of the cardstock. I'm using Nina White 110-pound cardstock to have because it kind of blends better on like the 110-pound or on a Bristol cardstock. So I'm just going here. I made kind of a mistake with the wilted violet. You see those marks there that my ink blending tool left. So, but that's not a problem because this ink stays wet like longer. I'll just blend it out with the worn lipstick, going over it, and then later on I'll go with the wilted violet to kind of blend those colors in. So next I'm using the broken china. The look I was going for was like kind of sunset sky because I'll have the bird on, kind of this will be the background for the bird. So I'm just going with the broken china here, kind of covering. I'm going for a very saturated look. So you'll see I'm layering more and more color to kind of cover all that white space and even the white space that's kind of poking through. So I'm done now, and I'm just heat setting it with my heat tool. And now I'm just gonna spray a little bit of water and heat it at the same time, so that water like doesn't cause the ink to kind of oxidize, and I just get white spots. So that's the look I was going for. And next I'm gonna stamp my branch, and I'm using the walnut stain. I'm using my Misty. So next I'm using the walnut stain Distress Oxide, and I'll just stamp and overstamp a couple times to have more saturated look and better coverage. And then I'm gonna heat set it again so I don't smear that ink, because this is the oxides are a blend of dye and pigment ink. Next I'm gonna stamp the bird, but it didn't get the look I was going for, so I'm using this stamp image kind of guide where I want to place my bird later on. So I'm stamping it again, and you will see it's kind of transparent. And I'm using the cracked pistachio ink pad, again Distress Oxide. So just heat set that one so I don't smear it, and then I'm going back with a white cardstock, and I'm gonna stamp and layer this bird, and I'm gonna heat set each layer. So I'm just trying to get good coverage here. So I'm satisfied with that look. I'm just setting it really quick. Next I'm gonna go back in my Misty. I'm gonna layer that second layer, and I'm using broken china for this one. Just making sure I ink well the stamp. So I'm going again, heat setting it again for a second or 2 or 5, and then I'm going the next layer, and I'm using faded jeans, again Distress Oxide. All the inks I use here are pretty much Distress Oxide. You'll see later on I'll use some VersaFine and Versamark. Now heat setting that, and then last I'm gonna stamp the beak. Going back again in my Misty, I'm kind of positioning that, the eye and the beak, and I'm using some VersaFine ink to stamp that. and I'm repeating it for 3 or 4 times. So that's the bird is done. So next, I'm stamping the legs onto my background, and I'm again using the VersaFine Onyx black ink. So I'll set this aside to dry. In meantime, I'm gonna cut the bird using my scissors. I don't know why. I have the dies, the matching dies for this set, but I just use my scissors because actually I know why. It's like I can cut it closer to the lines using the scissors. So next I'm just popping the bird on some dimensionals and adhering it to my background. Next I'll go do the sentiment, and I'm using Hope You Trip Up Soon. And I got here a strip of black cardstock. I'm using my Misty Creative Corners to position that strip and make sure it's the sentiment as well is positioned straight onto the strip. Now I'm stamping it using Versamark. I applied some embossing powder, not embossing powder, but the tool, anti-static tool that has powder in it. And now I'm using Hero Arts white embossing powder to emboss my sentiment. Next I'm using some Swiffer wipes to kind of remove that powder. I'm just gonna adhere my sentiment onto the panel. I'm again using my Misty Creative Corners to kind of line that up, make sure it's straight. Then just trim the ends. So next I position some sequins onto my card, my panel, and I'm using some Ranger Multi Matte Medium, some micro tip applicators to adhere my sequins and little bits on the background. Again, I was going for that sunset look, kind of dusky look, and I'm adding the sequins to kind of imitate the stars, that sky. Next, I'm using black card base. I'm just applying my fast fuse or Tombow extreme adhesive. Next, I'm going in my Mini Misty to use it to position the layers, kind of line up my layers properly. So I'm just adhering that, and my card is done. So here's my card. Thanks for watching, and see you soon in the next video. Bye!